Well, so as we mentioned, even if the show isn't going to come out for another year, we read the scripts immediately after they're written.
Yep.
You know, we're always bugging the writers like, hey, they're reading the script, we really want to read, you know, we got to know what happens, you're leaving us hanging here. So it's really cool for us to be that intimately involved in the production process from the get-go.
Yeah.
But what's more is that, you know, we type out note sheets of just natural responses to what we're reading in the script and like what ideas we're getting musically just right there on the spot. And sometimes those ideas stick with it until, you know, the music is actually created and they end up staying in there. It's cool because, you know, filmmaking is such a multifaceted art form. You know, you have actors doing one thing, you have cinematography and editing and costumes, and everyone's doing a different thing to tell a story. So, you know, and because of the medium of television, you have time limitations and stuff. So there could be this really important thing that happens, but visually it only happens for like a second or 2 seconds. And however, when we read the script, the writers spend 2 paragraphs describing just that one thing. And so, but when you see it, it's not really emphasized as much as the writers may have originally intended, just because of just the process that it goes through. So if we know from you know outright that the writers are placing that level of importance on that element, then we make a point to emphasize it with sound, because sometimes that emphasis can be carried over in just a matter of 1 or 2 seconds.
Right.
So, you know, we really kind of take it upon ourselves to carry the writer's true intentions all the way to the finish line.
Yeah, we're really lucky that, you know, we work with, I mean, everyone in the process really collaboratively, and that we from the get-go, we can, you know, see the scripts and get an idea of what the music is going to do, a blueprint for, you know, an entire season at a time. For us, that's really, really helpful, because it's you know, there's a mountain of music each season that we need to produce, and it can get overwhelming. And so to have a clear goal in mind of what we need to get to, and what storylines and what character arcs we need to highlight is really, really important and helpful.
I mean, we're always doing different things. We're doing feature films and commercials and things like that. I mean, honestly, the thing that's really captured my attention lately has been it's not a movie, it's not a show. It's actually a nonprofit called the Floating Doctors, which is a group of medical professionals that travel by boat in the most remote regions of Central America and the Caribbean, especially Haiti in the wake of the hurricane. And they provide just free medical care and ultrasounds and medicines and toothbrushes and everything to people that have literally never seen a doctor in their life. And so they save thousands and thousands of people's lives a year, and they also they promote health awareness in those communities, and so they train sort of the tribe's elders to teach the rest of their people how to how to brush their teeth and how to check for worms and how to deliver babies and everything like that. And so it's very it's very important to to sort of have media be a big part of the promotion process, because our culture is so visual and stuff, and so they're constantly making these promotional videos to try to get donations and funding for these people to receive help and stuff. So they asked me to kind of be their composer in residence. So lately I've been writing a lot of music basically for these videos, asking people with a lot of money to contribute to this cause. And even though it's not something that makes a person relatively well known, it's very cool, because if I can do something that elicits an emotional response in the viewer, then maybe they'll open up their checkbook and more people can live. So it's it's a daunting task and stuff, but go check it out, floatingdoctors.com. I'm very, very proud of it.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. I think one thing that Jay and I both have in common is that not only we love to write music, but maybe even more, we like to write music with a purpose. It's really rewarding when you can get behind a cause, and music can help something with that's a little bit for the greater good. So Jay is doing this. The next project I'm working on is a documentary about childhood obesity called Bite Size, and it's as rewarding as it is to work on Ninjago, and we have so much fun with it. We really love to work on these other side projects that are more passion projects, that don't have a ton of money involved, but that you know are really satisfying at the end of the day to work on them. So
absolutely, I mean, it takes all sorts of projects, you know, to make the world go round and stuff. So you know, we're very blessed and very grateful to have such a wide audience for our music, like you guys in Ninjago, and so we kind of were able to sort of leverage that in order to, you know, maybe bring some of you guys on and be fans of these other projects that may need a little more support.
yeah, completely.
That's a loaded question. Whew. So, you know, as you know, we get together in the beginning of the season to write the main themes together. So we do that physically in the same room. It's like a brainstorming session or a think tank. And then for every episode, we split off and we kind of pick and choose which scenes we both want to write for. There are a couple times every season where a scene is so important to the both of us that we both want to leave our mark on it. And that's the wrong way to say it, because it's not about ego. It's like the scene is so important to us and it's important to the story that we just feel inherently that the scene will benefit from both of our creative gifts and input.
Right, but oftentimes it takes a little bit longer to literally put our heads together and write a cue at the same time. So that's why we don't do it for an entire episode. It would just take way too long. So.
But for instance, you know, a lot of the written material for the pilot, like, you know, the overture and everything like that, we wrote that side by side. In episode 7, where Zane flips on his memory switch all the way to where he realizes his true potential, we did that in the room together. Mm-hmm. The final battle, yes. You know, we wrote that together. The Temple of Light, we wrote that in the same room together. Any really pivotal moments, you know, for the plot, but also just emotionally for the audience and stuff. I mean, my favorite piece is definitely the final battle, just because at the time we wrote it, we thought that it was over. We didn't know that there was going to be a new season until after we already handed everything in, and thought that, you know, hey, we gotta you know, move on to our next project. And so we wrote that with the intention of that being the last scene of Ninjago ever. And so, you know, just like an athlete that's going out right before retirement, his last game on the field, we left it all out on the field.
Yeah. For me, I think some of my favorite pieces are the ones where we get to use live musicians more. I think the Falcon is one of my favorites. There's something really magical that happens when, you know, you either have an idea in your head or, you know, you put it down on paper, and then suddenly it comes alive when another musician plays it. So for me, I think the tracks that I'm most proud of are the ones with lots of live musicians, because they're really fun to work on. That's good timing.
Yeah, as of about maybe 30 minutes ago, we can give you an official update on the official soundtrack. So, you know, we've been compiling actually 2 soundtracks, one for each season.
Yeah.
They're both about an hour long. You know, and it's not just scene by scene. Like, you know, we took a lot of care to string things out thematically. So there's a whole Green Ninja suite. There's a whole Pythor suite. There's a whole, you know, Garmadon family theme. The whole Oedipus, Darth Vader kind of thing suite.
Yeah, we tried to really come up with an order of the tracks, so that they're not just randomly thrown on there, but they tell a story, and you feel like you're going on an emotional ride with, you know, as you're listening through the soundtrack. And it's almost like you're experiencing the whole season as you listen to the soundtrack.
Yeah, and so you know, as of this video, which is, I guess, November 14th, literally just right before we recorded this video, we're here in Kramer studio, and we had just had a conference call with a very good,
pretty big.
Yeah. I mean, they're very, you know, they're very reputable. They're very time honored record company that specializes in film scores and TV soundtracks and just dramatic music. Like very much a record label for the fans.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if all goes well, they'll be releasing our 2 records. And, you know, regardless of what happens with this company or that company and stuff, you know, we are going to put out records for you guys.
Absolutely.
They are going to be on sale. You can listen to them whenever you want. You know, we're so grateful for all the support, and everybody's been asking us about soundtracks. So mark our words, we will deliver. Hopefully, you know, with any luck, around the time that season 3 is going to premiere.
Yes. Yeah. Keep your fingers crossed.
But right now, and we were kind of keeping this hush hush because it was this embarrassing thing where they spelled our names wrong on iTunes and that was weird thing. But right now, if you go on iTunes and you search Ninjago, there are about 20 ringtones that Kramer and I made custom for y'all's phones.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different themes from all of your favorite characters on there. So.
Yeah, so if your mom and dad call, you can have Jay's parents as your ringtone, and if your ex-girlfriend calls, you can have Lord Garmadon or something like that.
That is a good question. So for the most part, the music that we write is created inside the the computer, and we use these things called samples. So what samples are, it's kind of like a bridge between real recorded music and electronic music. So let's say if you go into a recording studio and you have an orchestra play like a G note, right, and you record that, and then you link it up with the computer. So that if you press a key on a keyboard, it then plays back that sample of the orchestra playing a G note. And so if you do that with all the the orchestra and all the different notes and different ways to play the notes, you come up with this huge library, if you will, of samples, and that's what they call them. So in a way, it allows us to play the orchestra through our computers.
Correct. Yeah, a lot of people make the mistake in saying, "Oh, do you just use all synthesizers?" Well, no. I mean, it is live musicians playing notes.
Right.
So it's real instruments, but it's an artificial performance because they're just doing it in these tiny little cells. I don't know if you guys are a fan of Roger Ebert, the late film critic, but he lost his voice. But he had this guy develop this technology where he would go in for there's millions of Roger Ebert interviews and stuff, and he would take Roger Ebert's voice and splice it up syllable by syllable.
Wow.
To the point where Roger Ebert was able to type out something and then it would sound like his voice. And it was his voice doing it one syllable at a time. So we do that same thing with instruments.
Yeah. So it's one part, sampled orchestral instruments. And then the other part is, live ethnic instruments that we get other players to play. And then we do use actual synth instruments. Like for instance, the samurai was a good example of using more electronic synth instruments. But we blend all those three styles together into one.
Yeah, I mean, whenever it's possible, we always want to use as much live sound as possible. There's no comparison to when a real human being breathes their breath or uses their muscles and their blood to like drag a bow across a string. I mean, there's nothing like it. Also, voices. We try to use voices when possible.